The rain was relentless, hammering the cracked pavement outside the diner like it wanted to drown the world. Inside, I sat alone in a vinyl booth, staring at the neon open sign flickering through the window, its red glow bleeding into the Portland night. My name's Elias Navarro, 24, a barista with too many dreams and not enough spine to chase them. And I was about to learn that some moments cut so deep they rewrite your soul. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked Julian Carter, 26, soaking wet, his auburn curls plastered to his forehead. He was a photographer, the kind who saw beauty in broken things, abandoned warehouses, rusted bridges, people like me. We'd met 3 months ago at a gallery opening, his easy smile disarming my usual defenses. Now, his hazel eyes scanned the diner, landing on me with a spark that made my chest tighten. "Elias, you look like you're plotting a heist," he teased, sliding into the booth across from me. His voice was warm, like a fire you wanted to lean into. I rolled my eyes, but my lips betrayed me with a smile. "More like plotting how to survive this shift," I said, nodding at the empty coffee cup in front of me. The diner was my second job, a late-night gig to cover rent in this overpriced city. Julian leaned forward, his damp jacket dripping onto the table, and I noticed the camera bag slung across his shoulder. Always with that damn camera. "You're working too hard," he said, softer now, his gaze lingering. "You ever gonna let yourself breathe?" I shrugged, avoiding his eyes. Breathing felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Not with bills piling up and a family back in Nevada who barely spoke to me since I came out at 19. Julian didn't push, but he had this way of seeing through my walls, like they were made of glass. The diner was dead, just us and the hum of the old jukebox in the corner playing some forgotten Springsteen track. Julian pulled out his camera, aiming it at me. "Don't," I groaned, but he just grinned. "Too late," he said, snapping a photo. "You're my muse tonight." I laughed, but it came out shaky. There was something about the way he looked at me through that lens, intense, unguarded, like he was capturing more than just my face. He set the camera down and reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. My heart stuttered. We'd flirted before, danced around the edges of something more, but this felt different. Electric. "Elias," he said, his voice low, "why do you keep running from this?" I froze. Running from what? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood, walked around to my side of the booth, and slid in next to me. The air between us crackled. "You know what?" he whispered, his breath warm against my cheek. And then, before I could think, he kissed me. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a confession, a collision, a spark igniting a fire I didn't know I'd been carrying. His lips were soft but sure, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not just my face, but the mess of hopes and fears I kept buried. When he pulled back, his eyes searched mine, and I realized I was trembling. "I'm not running," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. But I was. I'd been running my whole life, from rejection, from pain, from the chance that someone like Julian could want someone like me. He smiled, but there was a flicker of something else in his eyes. Worry, maybe, or fear. "Good," he said, "because I'm not going anywhere." The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments. Julian would show up at the diner after my shifts, camera in hand, coaxing me into late-night adventures. We'd drive out to the Oregon coast, where he'd photograph the waves crashing against the cliffs, or wander through Portland's graffiti-covered alleys, laughing until our sides hurt. He was relentless in his pursuit of beauty, and somehow, he'd decided I was part of it. But there was a shadow over us, one I couldn't quite name. Julian had secrets, phone calls he'd step outside to take, moments when his smile faltered, like he was carrying a weight he wouldn't share. I didn't press him. I was too caught up in the way he made me feel alive, like the world wasn't just a grind of bills and exhaustion. One night, we ended up at his tiny apartment in southeast Portland, a cluttered space filled with prints of his photos pinned to the walls. I was sprawled on his couch, sipping cheap wine, when he sat down next to me, closer than usual. The air felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. "Elias," he said, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "There's something I need to tell you." My stomach dropped. I set the wine glass down, bracing myself. "What is it?" He hesitated, running a hand through his curls. "I'm leaving. Next month. I got a gig in New York, a big one. It's a chance to finally make a name for myself." The words hit like a punch. I stared at him, trying to process. "You're leaving?" He nodded, his eyes locked on mine. "But I want you to come with me." I laughed, sharp and bitter, because it sounded like a joke. "Julian, I can't just. I have a life here. Jobs. Rent. I'm not." I trailed off, my chest tightening. "I'm not like you," I wanted to say. "I'm not brave enough to chase dreams across the country." He reached for my hand, his grip firm. "You're more than you think you are, Elias. You're not just some guy stuck in a diner. You're your everything to me." I pulled my hand away, standing up. The room felt too small, the walls closing in. "You don't get it," I said, my voice cracking. "I can't just pick up and leave. I'm not built for that." "Elias." "No," I cut him off. "You're asking me to risk everything, and you don't even know if." I stopped, the words catching in my throat. "If you'll stay. If this is real." He stood, closing the distance between us. "I know it's a lot, but I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you since the first night I saw you at that gallery, looking like you didn't belong but owning the room anyway." My breath hitched. Love. He'd said it, and it felt like a blade and a lifeline all at once. I wanted to believe him, but fear was louder. Fear of being left, of being not enough, of failing again. "I need time," I said finally, my voice barely audible. He nodded, but the hurt in his eyes was unmistakable. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." The next month was torture. I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts at the coffee shop and the diner, trying to drown out the noise in my head. Julian didn't push, but he was there, texting me photos of sunsets, showing up with coffee, leaving little notes on my car windshield that said things like, "You're braver than you know." Each one chipped away at my resolve, but I was still terrified. One night, I was closing up the diner when a group of guys came in, loud and drunk. They were the kind of frat types who thought they owned every space they walked into. I served them coffee, keeping my head down, but one of them noticed the rainbow pin on my apron, a gift from Julian. "Hey, look at this," the guy slurred, pointing at me. "You one of those, huh?" I ignored him, but my hands shook as I poured their coffee. His friends laughed, egging him on, and before I knew it, he was out of his seat, crowding my space. "What? You too good to talk to us?" "Back off," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He smirked, stepping closer, and then the bell jingled. Julian. He must have been passing by, because he was there in an instant, his camera bag slung over his shoulder, his eyes blazing. "Leave him alone," Julian said, his voice low but dangerous. The guy laughed, but there was something in Julian's stance, unyielding, protective, that made him hesitate. The group muttered something and left, their bravado deflated. I stood there, heart pounding, as Julian turned to me. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft now. I nodded, but I wasn't. Not really. Because in that moment, I saw it. Julian wasn't just the charming photographer with a knack for finding beauty. He was someone who'd stand in front of a storm for me, and I'd been pushing him away. We didn't talk about New York again until the night before he was supposed to leave. We were on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, the same one I'd imagined in my mind 1,000 times since we met. The sunset was fire and gold, and Julian was beside me, his camera resting on the ground for once. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely audible over the waves. What if I go with you, and it all falls apart? What if I'm not enough? He turned to me, his eyes fierce. Elias, you're enough. You've always been enough. And if it falls apart, we'll figure it out together. But I can't stay here and pretend I don't want you with me. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man who'd kissed me in a diner, who'd stood up for me, who'd loved me even when I couldn't love myself. And I knew, in that moment, that I couldn't let him go. Okay, I said, my voice trembling but sure. I'll come with you. His face broke into a smile, and he pulled me into his arms, kissing me like the world was ending and beginning all at once. The ocean roared below us, and for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. In New York, we started small, a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, my barista job at a hipster cafe, Julian's photos slowly gaining traction in galleries. It wasn't easy. There were fights, doubts, nights when I wondered if I'd made the right choice. But every time I looked at Julian, I remembered that cliff, that kiss, that moment when he showed me who he was and who I could be. Love isn't a cure for everything. It doesn't erase fear or fix broken pasts. But it's a reason to keep going, to take risks, to build something new. Julian taught me that. And from that day on, I could never see him, or myself, the same way again.